order. Today is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024, which will take some getting used to, at 6:35 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm a chair of our Woodbridge Town Planning and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight include Yoni Zamir, Jeff Kennedy, Kathy Hunter, Aaron Hoffman, and Ben Cherry. We're ably supported, as always, by Chris Sullivan, our land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer. We're meeting here in person. Nice to see all of you. Our agenda tonight has been posted to the town website. Tonight we have quite a few items of new business, including application for a site plan approval for Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 referrals, an application for a special exception permit for a sign for baseball fields, and I think that kind of covers all 6 of the new business items. And then in our work session, we're going to talk a bit about our upcoming update to the town plan of conservation and development, but also I think spend some time in our monthly cleanup of our zoning regulations. And I believe we did also receive some correspondence, and we have a couple of minutes to approve. Alrighty, so should we get started with new business? So the first item on our agenda is an application by Marie Henry for 220 Amity Road, an application for a site plan approval for expansion of an existing building to accommodate a convenience store for a new gas station and the site location of that gas station on the site. Do we have anyone here tonight?
That has to get, scheduled for a public hearing because it is a special exception, so no one's here this evening.
Right, it's a special exception and not a site plan approval?
There's a site plan review because there's an expansion of the building, but the use of the gas station is a special exception.
Gotcha.
So.
All right, is this something that we can schedule for our next regular meeting?
Sure.
Everyone sound good?
Sounds good. Next meeting, sure.
All right, do we need any formal motions?
You usually make a motion.
Okay, would someone like to move to,
So moved. Second.
moved and seconded to have a public hearing for the special exception application for this gas station and convenience store at 220 Amity Road? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We will have that at our next regular meeting. All right. Next up on the agenda is our Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 referral for 41 Ford Road, which is the Massaro Community Farm, for a shipping container to be used for growing culinary mushrooms in Connecticut. And it seems to be a project also associated with schools. Sort of. Once you're back in front of the microphone, I'll have you introduce yourself, and we can share whatever is easiest.
Yeah.
I get to keep one.
Thank
Wait, but one needs to go to,
I will give you this.
You will give me that one. Thank you.
so if you could,
No, you refer to
yeah.
it.
If you could just introduce yourself for the record. Chris, does he need to sign in or no?
No, I know who he is. He's a good guy.
Hi, I'm Bob Tucker. I'm a member of the board of Massaro Community Farm, and I'm here basically filling in for our director, Steve Munna. What we're doing is we're going for some grant money to start a small mushroom growing operation that would be done within shipping containers. And so, there you go.
Sorry.
Do I need to start over?
No, we still got it.
Okay.
Kinda.
Okay. So we are, looking for some grant money to do this project where we would be growing mushrooms in these shipping containers. It's going to be two 40-foot containers and then a 20-foot by 12-foot cooler sort of structure, another container basically. Yeah, the tie-in with the schools is that I think that Steve has some connections with local schools to basically provide locally grown mushrooms for their culinary use, or possibly for the culinary school educational program. And so in terms of location, the little plan that I just handed out shows in yellow where they would be placed. There are currently 2 kind of hoop houses in that area and some outdoor storage. It's back from the road, it's behind our sort of permanent greenhouse structures, and you know, back kind of behind those. It's really not visible from the road or anything. Any questions or anything I can answer?
Just I guess a little one, I assume there'll need to be power out there, or
Yes.
these, so, and I don't mean to put you on the spot on the details of mushroom growing, but do they require lights, dark? I mean, I'm not actually sure.
I'm just filling in for Steve.
Okay.
I have not asked that question myself yet. I believe they like dark and a little light. I don't really know. But yes, we do need to run power out there, and that's part of our grant proposal, is running underground power from, I think we're going to go from our new pavilion.
I assume you guys don't need any other special licenses from the state or anything regarding growing mushrooms?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
No, it's all sort of a package through another mushroom farmer down in Mystic, actually, who's kind of designed the whole system. So it's kind of all wrapped up in a bow, and all we have to do is get the money to pay for it, and then we can bring them out. They'll just be set on a gravel base. They're really not really permanent structures. If it doesn't go well, they can be picked up and taken away.
I'm just curious, what is the Connecticut School Project?
I'm sorry?
What is the Connecticut School Project for the culinary training?
The school project? I really don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the details of the school connection. I missed the last board meeting.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Other questions from members of the commission?
So an 824 review, Chris, can you just mention again?
I think
so
you're Jeff.
occasionally do, but why it's
Jeff, one of the mics needs to be on.
This is you just finding that it's in compliance with your town plan.
Thank you.
They will need a separate zoning permit for the placement of the structures, but that's just a zoning permit.
But that's a good question, because really with 8-24, it has to be, it usually comes with a substantial improvement of town property. So that's why I was curious, not so much with this one, though I will argue it's probably not a substantial improvement, but certainly with the sign, I don't see that as being an 8-24.
I don't ask for them to be submitted. They get sent through from the Board of Selectmen. So however they're advised to refer it, they do.
Right.
And usually that's with, I guess, their town council present.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could probably, at some point, if it's not a appropriate referral for 8-24, I don't think we have to be, approving with anything that gets referred over. If it's not, doesn't rise to the occasion of an 8-24 referral.
And if you don't vote for it, they
It
can
gets approved
override it.
anyway, right.
Doesn't matter.
Right, because this is a planning component of our work.
But this one happens to be a nice one, but I think it would be good for us
Yeah.
to weigh in that we.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the 824 review that's consistent with our plan of economic conservation and development and appropriately presented and understood. thank you. So I make a motion to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on approving this 824 motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? There are none. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and filling in, and good luck with growing mushrooms. They are sometimes
Culinary.
culinary mushrooms, yes. They are sometimes finicky from what I
I'll try to
understand.
find out more.
For the motion.
No, they're not the easiest thing to grow necessarily.
I should note to you, since you're interested in mushrooms, that we do have another site in town where they also grow mushrooms, but they grow them outdoors on logs in a wetland. And they sell them to local restaurants, so.
A lot of that in my backyard.
Thank you, Bob.
Well,
Thank you.
maybe next year, you come around and get some. All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye, Chris.
Bye, Bob.
All right, next up on our agenda is another 8-24 referral for the Acorn Hill Road extension, a property where I guess the Bethwood Baseball League operates, seeking to put a permanent sign on Acorn Hill Road.
So, there's no one here tonight. You also have an application, because this requires a special exception permit from you. This is that freestanding sign for under 4.4, 4.6, which you've become so familiar with. It was basically to, I guess, identify the entryway to where the baseball field's are.
So
For
on the
whatever
agen-
reason, it got referred to you.
on the agenda 3 and 4, they're connected, right?
3 and 4 are connected because 3 is the 824 referral that we received from the Board of Selectmen, and 4 is the application for that special exception
Okay.
permission to have the sign.
So on the 824 request, it appears that because this is town property, they want to put a sign on top property. Whether this rises to the level of something that we need to formally approve is an open question, and yet I'm okay entertaining a motion to find that this sign on town property is consistent with our town planning and zoning rules. If anyone would like to move.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further any discussion on the proposed sign? And maybe Kathy, you can feel free to register your feeling if this is a minor item, not necessarily rising to the level.
Yeah, I mean, I would just suggest that maybe town council kind of looks at what constitutes a 8-24, and they talk about substantial improvements, and, you know, I just don't think every type of minor alteration to a town property should have to come here for 8-24 referral. I think they are perfectly, you know, that's within their purview to make that decision to put a sign. I mean, it's just my thoughts.
Yeah, though interestingly, this one requires us to do a full, special exception permit for this sign. So our rules have made it such that we deem it significant enough for us to go through a special exception permit and a public hearing.
Yeah, but I also wonder whether or not, whether or not this wouldn't fall under like table 4.4, where it's allowed without a permit, because there's a couple provisions where I read it, it kind of sounds like this could possibly fall underneath that, where they talk about, like, for instance, they have a permanent sign maintained by a church or civic organization that's exempt for the purpose of notifying the public of the presence in the town of such a church or organization. I mean, this is a sign that the Bethwood Baseball organization, which is, I imagine, a civic organization, wants to put on the ball field to call attention to it. And so that's why you know, it's town property, and they want to put a sign for baseball fields that are there, so
At the entrance,
right.
on the road, yes. So it's not interior, it's on Acorn Hill
on the
Road Extension.
Okay, so it's more of a safety type of decision. Okay.
Any further discussion on, we're still only dealing with the 8-24 referral. I personally am fine with it both coming to us and us. I'm also in favor of approving it, because I think because signs are something that we deal with in our regulations, it does, to me, step into that zone where only barely where it's okay to have an 8-24 referral.
But this has to go to public hearing? Right.
It's like the one that you did
Right.
over on the corner of,
Any further discussion on the 8-24 referral and the motion to approve as consistent with our town planning and zoning?
In terms of the application, I didn't
We're-
receive,
this is the 824.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we approve the 824 referral. And next up is the application for a special exception permit for this sign, item 4 on our planning and zoning agenda tonight. And I will entertain a motion to schedule this for our next public hearing.
So moved.
I'm sorry, who moved? Andrew?
Jeff can have the motion, I'll second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion on this motion for the special exception permit for this sign? Kathy, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I did not get in my package, I don't know if anybody else did. I didn't get the Schedule B letter of permission from the owners of the town, from the town. So that wasn't included, and I didn't get a Schedule C in here, or the waiver. So I was just wondering if we get the full application.
I'll do that, an extra one of those.
Yeah, it looks like I got 2 of these in my packet. So then I'll give you.
Great, thank you.
You have everything now?
I don't know if anybody else got it.
Yeah, I did not get Schedule B
Or C.
or C.
Or C.
Or the waiver.
So, Schedule A, and I just put these through the thing, so they all should have come out. Should have been this.
This was the package.
Yeah, we
This
got
is-
that.
We got
This is
that.
Schedule A,
They came to that.
and then here's another Schedule A,
I think it came.
Got that.
and then here's the map.
Right. We didn't get the letter of permission from the town.
They must not, the
I-
selectmen must not have forwarded that. Or that wasn't included.
The list of
I-
abutting.
Oh, this was to us.
I gave you what I got.
So Chris, if you could go back to
Dwight,
the applicants and ask for them to resubmit prior to our hearing these letter of permission, Schedule B, the Schedule C list of abutting property owners. Do you need to actually use them?
Schedule C is something I told them I would provide,
Oh.
so
Okay.
I can give you that. Because in this particular case, it's such a large piece of property that there are properties that it touched that aren't in any proximity to where the sign is, so usually what we've done is just noticed those that are most likely to be impacted by it, which in this case would be the residences along Acorn Hill Road Extension. There are 3 residents leading up to it. So it's my intent to send them notice. Unless you want me to send more.
No. And then there's also an item 4, which was a waiver of the application fees. just going through their list on the front.
That was given to them, but I'll ask for a copy of it, yep.
Okay, any further discussion on scheduling this public hearing for this
Next meeting, right?
next meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
February 5th.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Alrighty. We are moving right along to our next two, which we should do individually, Chris?
Yes, these are actually made to you, as required by bond counsel. So, that's why they're referred to you, because bond counsel requires an 824 review. And there's a special format that I have to include in the minutes for how that vote is taken. That was supposed to be forwarded to me today, but I think it was a little busy here at the town hall, so I didn't get a chance to get it. But if you're inclined to approve these two, we can just make the motion subject to being in the format as required by bond counsel.
All right, so let's start with the first item, item 5, which is the Connecticut General Statutes 8-24 review of the proposed roof replacement at Beecher Road School at 40 Beecher Road. I'll entertain a motion to find that this application is consistent with our town planning and zoning regulations.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion in front of us? Hopefully folks saw on the package, it looks like that this is a replacement of the roof, the roofs that are now 20 years old, at their life expectancy. Seems like a good thing to do to replace an old roof.
I agree.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, and Chris, that motion is whatever language you wanted to be in conformance with the bond council's requirements. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So we approve the proposed, or we find that the proposed 8-24 review is consistent for the roof replacement. Last up on our new business is item 6, which is proposed site improvements at Beecher Road School at 40 Beecher Road. Again, we have a 8-24 request in front of us. I will entertain a motion consistent with the language to be provided by bond council to find that these site improvements are consistent with planning and zoning.
So moved.
Who wants it? Moved by Aaron and
Second.
seconded by Kathy. Any discussion?
We are seated, right? I guess we.
It's one of you's not. Andrew was late, but Andrew's here now. So
I
Andrew
can-
gets to vote.
I can step down if you like.
So any questions or discussion on the site improvements?
I think we probably should have just one of us move or second. So I think one person needs to be seated for it to be a.
Yeah, only one alternate can be voting at the moment.
No. So
So
should,
so someone else should second, that's what I'm saying.
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy. So if you saw, the site improvements are things like, pavement modifications for drainage improvements, a lot of drainage improvements and pavement repairs and other sorts of things. Anyone have Any discussion on the proposed site improvements?
It's very detailed. I have no comment on it. Something we need to do.
I actually haven't seen it.
This was in the,
In the
Should have been in
packet.
the packet.
No, I just have 3 items in my thin packet. This place also has 3.
or the one that you got in the mail.
Just read something to me.
Sometimes they arrive in the mail.
Sometimes.
It's good to do that.
Do the thing.
And our mail just arrived today after being held for
So I don't know this.
a week. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? We've now approved all of our new business. Thank you all. We should move to our work session. Do we want to get a few things out of the way before we dive back into the
Sounds good.
updates? Great.
Sounds good.
Okay. But for those folks who have, just remember, it's always good to keep the things that we're having public hearings on. You get them this week, you use them again next month. Alrighty. So we'll skip our cleanup and go to the update on the plan of conservation and development items. And so thank you, Kathy. Hopefully folks saw, and I think Chris, you've copied some additional examples from Milford and Kent on requests for qualifications.
Actually, Kathy provided those, and I just did them for you tonight in case you wanted to mark them up.
And so, Chris, what's our timeline for going out for the RFQ? Any sort of updates there, or?
You wanna do it as soon as possible. You do have 20,000 in this year's budget, and there'll be a placeholder of 20,000 in the fiscal year for the upcoming year, with the understanding that that may increase depending on who you hire and all that other good stuff. But we need to find somebody sooner rather than later. So, Tony Genovese, who's the finance director, said that there's a website out there that they use where these go out for municipal purposes, so they go out to all the planners and everybody that would be out there. So that's how it would get circulated. We wouldn't necessarily be mailing directly to companies.
You would probably also put it on the Department of Administrative Services, the state's.
He knows all those places that they've put things out for what they need to do, so.
Now, this is, in terms of just kind of working backwards, this needs to be done by, is it May
The
2025?
town plan needs to be completed and adopted by May
Right.
2025.
So we have to put this out real soon.
Yeah.
So, Chris, what do you need from us to get this out the door?
I need to know what format you wanna use, and then it's my understanding that the first selectman also gets to look at it, cause typically it goes out under the first selectman's letterhead rather than, the commission's letterhead. And so, there would be a review by the first selectman, so.
So, and I'll admit I only briefly sort of skimmed them. I thought the Kent example was a pretty efficient one in terms of asking for qualification.
Yeah, and I chose Kent because I know that Task Force 2030 was, you know, they looked at Kent as one of their towns of interest when they were looking for ideas and how to revitalize the Woodbridge business district. So that's why I looked at Kent. It's kind of cut and dry. Milford, on the other hand, kind of talks a little bit more about the town. And so I thought because we have so many different like initiatives going on, that would factor into the plan of conservation development between, you know, the housing committee and their plan and conservation and their greenway, and we have a sustainability committee, and you know, they have different initiatives, that there should be like a little paragraph that kind of talks about Woodbridge as a town, like the way Milford does, and they bring out certain, you know, features that they want to bring out in the plan. So I thought, you know, maybe that, there could be an intro like that prepared. And then kind of follow the Kent format. That was my thought.
Like in the Kent one, adding another paragraph to either the purpose or even an overview, like a point
Yeah, like the
zero
way
before.
Milford has in the beginning, they talk about some of their, a little history and, you know, attributes they want to see.
Any other sort of suggestions?
Who does the first draft of this, Chris? Like, who?
That's why you have these.
So, who would type it? I mean, who would prepare it, put it on the... Like, is it usually commission members?
If you tell me what you want, I
Okay.
can do this, and then,
Because what I suggest is you or one of us or someone, let's do a draft and then we'll circulate it amongst ourselves. We'll have some input in it and it'll be done. Right.
so I mean, if the draft is taking Kent and changing everything where it says Kent to Woodbridge, then we just need to draft a paragraph, what Kathy was
Sure,
suggesting.
right.
Yeah, and if you like, I could take a first stab at drafting
And
a
then,
paragraph.
yeah, I mean,
Sure.
then if Kathy drafts that, we can send that around along with the document. And,
We should probably give some attribution to Kent and the,
no,
thank you, some people got that.
But I
Okay.
think we should aim on getting this out by like February 1st or something.
yeah, this
'cause
has
it
to
really
go out.
has
Yeah,
to-
it should be
it-
really
You know,
soon.
because we
a lot of
had
work.
longer time with the housing plan, and this is a big, much bigger undertaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sounds like,
So I'll use the Kent, and I'm just
Yep.
gonna change anything that says Kent to Woodbridge, or anything obvious that isn't Woodbridge. And then if you draft something, then I'll put both of them together and send them out, and everybody can weigh in, and we'll go from there.
Sounds great,
And then
Chris.
I'll forward it to, the
Mika's
first
office.
selectman, then,
great. And thank you, Kathy, for taking on that opening paragraph description.
Done this before.
Anything else on this topic? Hearing none. Next, do we want to have our report from the SCROG?
Sure, I wasn't there, but I have the agenda. The action items were 4 in total. From the town of Wallingford, an application and an amendment with respect to electric vehicle charging facilities. I think facility, so a property owner generated proposed amendment. From the town of North Branford, text amendment with respect to multi-family housing district. And there was supposed to be a public hearing in the town of North Branford on that same night as this meeting was. I don't know the results of that public hearing or whether action was taken upon it. Town of Derby. And Derby is not a part of SCROG, so it must have been within 500 feet of Woodbridge. Text amendment with respect to child care centers, family child care and group child care. And lastly, from the city of New Haven, a zoning ordinance map amendment. Anybody interested in the actual text of these amendments, I'd be happy to circulate the attachments that were to this agenda, because again, I was not there at the meeting that night. That is it.
you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew? Hearing none. Next, Kathy, do you want to give a update from the Housing Committee?
Yeah, we do have our meeting tomorrow, but we did have just a couple updates. In our pursuit of trying to get planning capacity dollars in, the first selectman and myself did go to SCROG, and looks like they're gonna provide us with some assistance in getting grant dollars in order to get planning capacity, so we can help us implement our affordable housing plan. And then one of the just barriers I just wanted to talk about that our housing committee has identified is that if somebody was interested in doing a multi-unit housing development in Woodbridge, and they looked at the current regulations that are on the website, they would see that they wouldn't be able to do anything, when in fact, under the opportunity housing regulations, you are able to do a semblance of multi-housing development. So, and you would have to, in order to look at the opportunity housing, you would actually need to go to, at least when I was trying to look for it, you have to go to the June 7th meeting of 2021 as to when that was approved, and then scroll down to Exhibit B to actually see the housing opportunity regulations. So it's not apparent if somebody was looking to do something in Woodbridge. So I'm just wondering if we could just do a link under the planning and zoning website that just kind of like calls out, this is our housing opportunity regulations. So because I just kind of see our process in updating this in order for that to actually get on the website. It's going to take a while. So I just like to, I think it just would be a good idea to just have that there, so if somebody, a developer, is interested and is looking up something, they could see that it's actually allowable in areas that are served by public water, public, sewer, to do a multi-unit development. Because right now you can't find it. Looks like you can't do it.
So is that
It's,
possible
it's as simple as making a PDF of that section of the regs and adding it as a PDF to the website. It doesn't have to be a link, just a PDF of
Yeah.
that section of the regs titled Opportunity Housing Regulations. Not a biggie.
It does not seem like a biggie.
No.
Everyone okay with doing that?
Sure.
Yes. Across the board.
Thank you.
Other things from the housing committee?
No, that's it, because like I said, we haven't met yet. So we need to work.
Great. And Chris, you want to give our zoning enforcement officer report? And I see that it looks like we have 2 letters from...
You have 2 letters from
Luciani.
one of the neighbors down near 110 Luciani. The first letter, they stopped working earlier in December, so that became moot, although when that letter came in, I also forwarded it to the developer, and apparently, once that got forwarded, he was confirming with the hours that he was supposed to again. Since then, they haven't been doing any work, and supposedly, based on the second letter that you got today, they haven't done any work because one of the pieces of machinery that's there had some kind of hydraulic leak. So I sent a letter I forwarded that again to the applicant and said, sounds like, there was some kind of hydraulic leak. How did you clean up that? I did drive by today. There isn't any soil per se, it's all broken up shale or whatever you wanna call it. There was some drainage water running from the site. I didn't see any kind of, rainbow indicating of oil coming off the site. But we've had significant rains, as you all know, within the past couple of weeks. And so it's possible if there was something there, that it washed and it's now gone. But I haven't heard back because this second letter just came in today, I haven't heard back from, the property owner. But as I say, when I went out today, I didn't see anything that was there that was evident, and whatnot. So all I got to tell you.
And how much progress have, and just from, I haven't been down there in a while.
They've created a shelf and it's pretty much broken, so the piece of machinery that's there right now, is not the pounder, but rather a shovel. So I think they were just, removing excess material and carting it off site. I didn't see that there was a separate, sometimes that, pounder can be a separate component that gets placed on in lieu of the bucket. I didn't see it on site. So there was a lot of broken material there that could be carried off site, and it may be that they don't have a site to bring it to at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah. Any
But
questions?
there's erosion controls are firmly in place, they're holding. The site was clean, there was no trash, there'd been other complaints other years about, trash that was being dumped there, and the site was clean that way, so.
Any questions? Anything else coming across your desk?
I did send a letter off, regarding the extra signs on the corner of Bear Hill and Acorn, and they promptly reduced it down to one. They took one sign and placed it over the other, and when I drove by the other day, I noticed that there are no signs. So I'm assuming maybe, for the season, they may be closed, but we may see them back again in the spring, which is fine, because it's a permitted sign.
Okay, thank you. Anything else we should do before opening the big documents?
Unless you wanna get rid of minutes right now, so we don't forget them.
Okay, what minutes do we have?
You had three. You had the special joint meeting with you, and ZBA when you went to the JCC for your training. You had the November 6th, and you had December 4th. If you didn't have a chance to read them, we can always defer them to next month.
Okay, are folks ready with to approve minutes? To start with the October 30th special meeting minutes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
Second?
I'm sorry, who seconded, Yanni?
Yoni, yeah. Any discussion?
I'm just wondering, maybe it's not part of the minutes, but if the link to the YouTube could be made part of the minutes now, okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the October 30th special joint meeting minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
I'll abstain, I was not there.
Okay, so we've approved the October 30th minutes. Next, I'll move the approval of the regular meeting of November 6th minutes. Anyone second?
I can second.
Moved and seconded, November 6th. Any discussion? Any edits to those minutes? This one was at the Chris Farm. Seeing none, all in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you. And last, I will move to approve the December 4th regular meeting minutes. Do I have a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion, edits, comments on these minutes which were related to the Toll Brothers special permit public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions?
I'll abstain again.
Perfect. All right, approved minutes, thank you all. It is 7:20, anyone need to stretch, grab a drink, do anything, or, because we we could do an hour of approving, that'd be great. Is that okay with people's schedules? Reluctantly, I'm seeing heads nodding. Everyone has a chance to pull up the,
I don't know if that's not help you.
Actually,
I just,
What section are we
what is
on?
that?
yeah, Chris, you have to tell us where we're.
Yeah, I
No,
was
that's
just
the
looking.
old ones, that's not the new ones. That's
I
2019.
want,
Yeah, yeah.
the double marker at 4.1. Makes sense?
So I don't know why.
Let me
it's-
make sure.
I don't know why it's
Going
not
back
on
on
there. That's, I mean, this doesn't have
Yeah.
any,
I think we're starting at 4.1.
at least you can follow it.
Is there an approximate page for that?
In the draft with the notes on the side, it's page 117.
I'm sorry, 117?
117.
4.0 bulk and dimensional data?
Yep.
Should be the other one tonight.
Alrighty, thank you everyone. Hopefully you see where we are, section 4.0, bulk and dimensional data.
You did 4.0, you're on 4.1.
Oh, thank you.
4.0, we changed drinking water supply to public water supply.
So now we're on 4.1, which is lot, block, and building configuration.
I think so.
Does everyone find where we are? Want to share this? Okay, front yards, build two lines.
Ben, do you want to look at my hard copy? I have it pulled up if you want.
I think I have,
Yeah, but that doesn't have the, does that have the comments on it? So you
Yes.
might, oh, okay, leave it
Yeah, I
off
think-
that.
thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking at, the comments are, it states the purpose of the section is to create uniform locations, but section 4.0 and 4.1 are about more than this. I guess that's that first line. I don't think we need to change the language there.
Well, the whole section, I don't know. I mean, we do have signage in this section too, which is not bulk or dimensional. And we have landscaping standards and parking, so.
Are you going with comments? Is that the version is the comments? The purpose of 4.1. So to the extent, so for those who are in the annotated version, to the extent that comment on the right is about the highlighted thing in yellow, I'm okay leaving it as is. Section 4.1 is about, generally about location of buildings. So I don't think we need to change anything in section 4.1A. Anyone disagree?
That's fine.
Good, let's move to 4.1B, yard projections. Are you guys hearing okay? Is there anything? Great. Because I know this is exciting stuff. That's what we're going through. Nothing, section 4.1B is yard projections. It says not clear if there's an allowance for eaves.
So historically, we've always said that it's from the furthest most projection of the structure. So roof overhang, whatever. So unless you wanna say that it's specifically from the foundation, where the foundation hits the ground, that would be a change.
But it seems like he specifically was calling out eaves as something different than pilasters, belt courses, column sills, cornices, or similar architectural features.
So do we want the word eve to be put in there? Would that do the trick?
Yep.
Is it because an eave may project greater than 1 foot?
You can have eaves that,
Go, many.
that go out significantly,
Yeah.
whereas maybe the others are more like architectural sort of details that generally don't project, in my limited understanding of what a pilaster is.
Or don't project a lot?
Yeah,
Right,
there's,
a
whereas it-
sill
yeah.
or a column.
Yeah.
Kind of one, but an eave could be quite significant.
yeah,
But this limits them to 1 foot eaves. If you're doing more than a 1 foot eve, you're in trouble.
sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I think we can still add eaves to that list.
Whereabouts?
First, eaves, pilasters, belt courses. Does anyone know what a belt course is?
So sometimes it's bricks that are turned, like they'll stick out. My guess is you have like vertical bricks, and then you have one that creates a small, bump out basically.
Okay.
So do you wanna insert anything about 1 foot?
Well, it's already there.
It's there, yeah.
It's there?
Yeah.
First sentence.
Okay, so we're good. Okay.
You are correct on the belt course, by the way, by the Google check on the belt course. Well done, Aaron.
Please note that in the minutes that I got that correct.
There's a question, is there an exception for lot coverage contained in section on yard projections?
I guess that's the last sentence. Uncovered ramps shall not be considered within calculating lot area coverage. Would this be like for accessibility? Do you
Yes,
have a ramp?
I think they are identified. Uncovered ramps required for handicapped accessibility may project as necessary into a required yard. I don't think we need to change anything.
Yeah, I mean, whether, I guess the appropriate thing would be to add something in the lot coverage about the ramps maybe, but here I think it's fine.
Was that the previous section?
It's too late to go back.
Yeah, we can't go backwards. We must only go forward. So nothing worth changing with that question. other than, so we've added eaves into the list of things that could go up to 1 feet into a required yard. Willing to move on to C, rear lots?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, great. Just general comments that this section is not particularly clear or well organized.
Second comment's not particularly clear. The first sentence could be amended to no building or structure shall be built on any lot that does not have frontage of at least 20 feet. I'm not sure how granular we're getting about writing, but that would be a more direct way of saying it. I'm not sure it matters.
I don't know. This wasn't all that confusing to me, but
There are issues that arise with the whole 20-foot wide access strip, because depending on, which is beyond the discussion that's in here, because if you've got a long skinny 20-foot wide thing, what do you do with drainage if it's, you know, a steep slope going up and all that other good stuff? But I don't think that's something that you're gonna attack right now.
Also, isn't it not only possible, but quite likely that the access to the rear lot will require more than a length of 500 feet, depending on the size of the primary lot?
Most lots are less than 500 feet in depth.
Okay.
It's typically they're 200 feet by 300 feet to get to the 65,000 square feet if you're dealing with a residential A. But then there's a whole nother question, which doesn't have to get addressed here, where you have road frontage along something where you really can't access it because it's all wetlands or something, but it's considered a front lot, but that's another discussion to be held another day.
but isn't that part of 1E?
That's the access way. Rear lots have a different setback distance. They're double the side yards and rear yard. I don't know why, but they are. And they're double the area. Or 1.5 times the area. So, but as I say, it's not something that is a casual look-see at this stage of the game.
Okay. So, the last comment on the bottom of this page is that 1E and number 2 and number 3 are all about these shared access ways. And could be combined into perhaps that 1E. So if you can imagine 1E will now have 1, 2,
3 bullets.
3, 4 sentences within E.
Does that accomplish anything different though?
I have no idea. It doesn't.
I think it's fine.
So I think we're fine leaving C rear lots as is. Is everyone okay with that?
So there's no change to
No
that section.
changes.
I guess I have one simple question. In the first line where it says, shall be built on any lot, should it be any rear lot? Because this is dealing with rear lots? Or is that repetition?
I think that's inferred by the
the title of this.
title of the section. They're implied, one can infer, but it's implied.
So the only change on this page is adding eaves before pilasters.
Yep. Next page. There's a highlighter on the exception, but no comment. Is that highlighter referring to those earlier side comments about this whole section not being very clear or well organized? And if so, we can just ignore the highlighter on the exception and move on. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on. I'm now on D, non-conforming lots, buildings, and uses. Looks like there's a comment in 2 that he's not happy that there's a definition in the regulation.
Is there otherwise not a definition of non-conforming lots?
Isn't that what
Also-
1 is?
Yeah. In the definition section?
I don't think so. Nope, we have a non-building use, and that's the only non that we have.
I'm fine leaving this as is. Everyone okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to 3 on page 120-ish at the bottom. This starts with a comment in red, ask the town attorney.
There's been some case law now that says that just because something's been abandoned or is even removed, that doesn't mean that it was taken away. Because the old definition was that if you took something down, you couldn't rebuild it in place. You always had to kind of sister it and leave up one wall and then build around it, that kind of stuff. But there's been more current legislation or case law where you can rebuild on an old foundation, even if you took the whole thing down. So if you want, I'll double check with council on that to see, or double check what the statute currently says, rather than trying to have you deal with it right now. And I'll report back to you next month
Sure, and that's this question of whether,
on the 3, yeah.
yeah, this, if you basically yeah, okay, if you can ask that. It looks like 4 as well requires
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, the 240 days that's gone.
Okay, so for these, number 3 and 4, we need guidance on the latest statutes and maybe even just referencing the statute.
Yep.
Number 6, like there's a typo for if the same does not increase, so dose.
There is indeed.
The note is about whether this may not need TPZ approval. If we could delegate it to staff.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'm fine delegating.
Yeah, so maybe permitted by the staff.
The zoning officer?
Yeah.
Cause isn't that more like a normal sort of permit question that you would handle, Chris?
Yeah, and depending on what they were doing, it may not require any action at all, in a sense. So you wanna change commission to zoning enforcement officer?
Sure. All right. Moving on to E, building location. I think there's only a highlight in the word exception because you do not like exceptions being snuck into those sorts of places. Is that right, Chris?
I believe so.
Okay. But that's not something I think we need to change.
I'm trying to think if there's any infill lots in any of those zones, and I don't think there are, but then it doesn't, we don't worry about it.
Okay. So, page 121 otherwise looks fine. F, building massing. This is specific to this long list of our zones. Comment is that in that 1A, F1A, buildings on corner lots shall have two frontages. Requirements for the second and third layers pertain only to the primary frontage. Requirements for the first layer pertain to both frontages. Chris, where and how does this come up?
This was all from Hamden, and it makes no sense. Truthfully, the whole issue, irregardless of what zone it's in, about having a corner lot have two front yards, becomes an issue for a lot of places because it diminishes the availability of a corner lot to be used. So at some point, it would be nice to have the ability for someone on a corner lot to determine which of their frontages is their front yard. And typically it would be where their driveway comes in because that's their address.
Is that something we could fix right now?
Well, the problem is this only is applying to, it's not applying to the residential districts where it really affects it. Because in these districts, the setbacks are much smaller.
The comment is also about these first, second, and third layers are not explained in the graphic. Again, I don't think we're drawing a graphic.
Well, I don't know that that's what's supposed to be in the transect tables that also got borrowed from Hamden. Because my argument always was that those 3 pages deal with residential zones down in the flats, which have been pretty much all developed, and it puts another set of standards on them, which the residential A zone and residential B zone don't have to comply with. And so it's kind of putting an architectural kink onto those houses that nobody else has to adhere to.
And were these transect tables again borrowed from Camden?
These were borrowed from Hamden.
Have they done an update on their zoning?
They're in the process of changing it, yeah, cause they found it's not particularly
I
movable.
imagine.
I for one have never been able to understand the transect table, T3-BB. I would be in favor of deleting it in its entirety. And to the extent that the entire section, F, building massing, is unnecessary, to removing that for clarity's sake as well.
What would that do, just basically deleting F? Building massing.
Deleting what?
Part F. This, where we currently are looking.
Oh, well, no, I think you leave, I don't know. I mean, what I wouldn't wanna throw out with the baby in the bathwater is, unless we've got it somewhere else, is about the spires, towers, or belfries. Although 20% isn't a lot for a belfry or a spire. And you would know better than I whether or not treating a religious institution with its own set of regs, does that treat it differently than a secular thing? Although this section does also reference to public building. Let's see. So in the definition of building height, in section D, it specifically excludes including chimneys, spires, towers, elevator, penthouses, tanks, and other projections from building height. So that is protected under the definition, so I don't know that there's anything in here that you really need to worry about.
It is tempting. Where else do we refer to the transect table?
And it's identified in the very beginning, where it's identifying zones. And there again, it's just something.
Because the setbacks are in table 4.1, right?
And those were the setbacks that were always there for C and, C, D, and GB. So the only other transit districts that you've got are the T1, the T2, and the T3, which are natural zones, rural zones, and suburban zones. Actually,
Right, so
on that table, it doesn't include the normal T3. That's interesting. Table 1.1 doesn't include the residents, well, currently are T3C, T3D, T3BB. They're not listed.
sorry, Chris, where are you looking?
Or no, they are, I'm sorry. On page 5, they group them, those 3 residential districts, I misspoke, they're grouped under the suburban transit district. So T1 and T2 are 2 rural transit districts. And then T3 was supposedly suburban zone consisting of low-density residential areas. I wouldn't say there was for low residential areas, because they're the densest areas that we've got. Do you want me to, for the next meeting, get you the old definition of what the 3 residential districts were?
Sure, but I think back to Andrew's question, if no one understands and can really use Transect Table T3-C, should we delete it? Is there, I mean, it
Well,
doesn't
there's-
seem like it's referenced.
The question is, I don't know what would happen, like, you know, just, I'd have to think about it. What do you think, Jimmy? I mean, I don't know what the effect would be. These things are covered in other areas, right?
I don't even know where Transect Table,
refers to.
So you've got 3 transect tables. You've got one for BB, which is up near Raymond and up above the Development 1 district, but still in the flats where there's public sewer and public water, and the lot size is 9,000 something odd feet. And then you have Transect C, which is the 5,000 square foot lot, and then Transect D, which is the 4,000 square foot lot.
and what I'm saying is that I just did a search in the PDF,
Mhm.
and Transect Table only shows up in these 3 things.
Yeah.
It's not referenced anywhere
Or
else
anywhere else.
in our regulations. Can
Yeah.
we just delete these because
Yeah.
they seem to not be very helpful?
I mean, truthfully, I think if you deleted F through, it's F, which includes those tables all the way
All
to
the way
the end
through.
of F on page 126, it wouldn't hurt anything. Because this was all straight from Hamden, where they were worried about form-based zoning and how something was gonna look.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was proposing.
So if you look at the building massing F, C, right, in a parking structure or garage, each level counts as a single story. So is that anywhere else, or would it then go away and not be counted as a single story?
We don't have any parking structures.
If
They
someone,
wouldn't have any of that in those areas?
There aren't currently any.
if someone wanted to build a garage,
And
So
I mean,
there's no practical use of the one. This was just pulled in and added in. I was here when we did this, and you know, was new to the commission, didn't completely understand the whole thing that was happening. I mean, they were just adding these things in at the time.
Well, no, what happened was they took, the Hamden regulations were taken and Woodbridge was inserted where it said Hamden, but not all the time. Sometimes it still said Hamden.
All right, there you go. All right, all right, so Mr. Chairman, if you want to take out section F, building massing, you think that makes the regulations clear and will not have a, you don't think it'll have a larger effect? Yeah, take it out. The diagrams are very confusing. You know.
I can't understand the diagram parts at all. The only part I understand is the blocks on the left.
And those should be a repeat of our basic setback requirements.
Yeah, those are what you normally have anyway, so. yeah.
Which are in a table. Okay, so the idea here is to remove building massing F in its entirety.
That includes number 2 as well on,
Yes.
so G will become F.
Well, we just could do F reserved for future use or whatever. Everyone okay with that?
I'm okay.
Everyone looks okay with that? Sure. Okay, we've cut something significant. Okay, so we're now in special requirements G. And there's a note, this is on page 126 of the annotated version, there's a note about the shopfront facade.
And this again was something that was taken from Hamden.
So do we need 2? Special requirement 2. About shopfront facades having 70% glass with an awning overlapping the sidewalk.
Glazing is nice. I mean, for, you know, if, to create a street front, having a retailer with, you know, mostly a brick wall is, if you're looking to create a retail district, but the awning is sort of an old-fashioned notion of how retail should look. Where every, you know, a storefront has to have an awning covering the sidewalk. Just in my past life as a commercial developer, I've seen a lot of shopping centers pulling off their awnings or their, and so if we were going to keep this in any form, I would at least remove the awning part.
Agreed.
I'll agree to that too.
You good with the 70% glazed and clear glass though?
I don't have a huge opinion on that. I think trying to think of stores that don't want large front windows. Most of the time they do. I don't think it's.
But we could approve by the commission
Yes, that's true.
for if there is a reason.
Yes.
Okay. So Chris, it sounds like we can, the shop front shall be no less than 70% glazed and clear glass, period. And cut and shaded by an awning overlapping the sidewalk.
So we're getting rid of and shaded by.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone good with that? All right. How's our stamina holding up? It's 8 o'clock. Another 15 minutes?
Would that be the hour that you promised us, Mr. Chairman?
Just get a class.
Be a little less than the hour, I promise.
No, I'm good with it.
8:15.
Very good. Agreed.
I'm now on 3, specific to zone GBA. This is multiple family dwellings? What's
This
this?
is where you allow apartments over retail. We don't have any currently, but there are definitely buildings where it could occur. Like 214 Amity and Selden Plaza and there's a couple of them.
We're limiting them to 650 square feet.
Just a
Kathy, any reaction?
Well, I mean, we're looking to kind of do a lot of revamping of these zoning regulations. That's why we're looking for expert planning capacity to come in to
Yeah.
give suggestions as to what would make sense.
And this is only in GBA, which means it's in a very small,
Yeah.
Pretty much on the western side of Amity Road,
Yeah.
which makes sense in a sense, because the other side is the dealership and Monroe Muffler and a bank and the hardware store.
so it's near the bowling.
Yeah, it's 214 where you've got Subway and the tattoo parlor down below, but you have offices up above which access from the backside. So it lends itself to potentially having, and the same thing with Selden Plaza where the second floor is accessed from Hazel Terrace.
What about on Bradley?
Bradley is an NGB.
It seems like that place could theoretically have.
And this is something where the owner of that had mentioned that he would be receptive to having that option.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the first changes we talked about was making, that's step one, right?
That's step one, yeah.
To have mixed use there.
Yeah, I'm generally in favor of having that option available most places in the zone, but I think that's more than the cleanup
Yeah.
Right,
that we're
Yes.
doing.
Absolutely.
So it seems like in this section, there's only highlighted wayward and
Yeah.
in blue, which looks like it could be cut.
Yeah.
We'll move down to F. I mean, presumably that was, you could move it to F if there, it doesn't really matter. It's,
Yeah, I don't think we need
yeah, just,
an and anywhere in here. Okay, H, density and parking calculations.
Yeah, I wasn't getting the difference between actual parking and effective parking.
Is that why you think it's highlighted in H1 is actual parking and H2 is effective parking?
Well, I mean, he puts out that it's confusing.
How does, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, some of these comments aren't the most useful.
How does one read or interpret table 4.2?
crosswise. It's like so if you have a residential and a office, you go down the top right band and get to 1.4 parking ratio.
Okay.
Percent.
I don't think it's a discussion for either, but I think that looking at parking ratios for retail is another thing that's changing. They have been the parking ratios in the past have been onerous and out of sync with actual requirements. It's like, Black Friday, to accommodate Black Friday and no other day. And you just have empty parking lots for the rest of the year, but it's less of an issue in Woodbridge because we don't have big retailers, but something to think about.
Where is table 4.1?
There might not be one.
Is this figure meant to be table 4.1?
Table 4.1 is our bulk regulation.
Page 114.
In conjunction.
Chris, in table 4.2, who set those ratios? Is it is that
Hamden.
Hamden ratio?
They came from Hampton.
Okay. I just wondered if there was
And they may have had a valid basis, I don't know.
Yeah, I have, I don't know.
But that's where they came from.
Okay.
Okay, so what are we trying to accomplish in this density and parking calculations, other than it seems out of order? 'Cause
So when Glenn was doing this exercise, he was just looking at formatting issues. He wasn't providing any suggestions as to how to make these regulations make sense for Woodbridge, because Hampden is much different than Woodbridge.
He was going through and just trying to clean them up, because there were tables that were missing, tables that didn't get referred to, and that kind of stuff. He wasn't trying to make any substantive changes.
It wasn't a policy approach, Kathy, it was an approach to make them cleaner, easier to read, and a little bit more accessible, taking things out that were redundant or didn't make sense.
Because I think, this doesn't really make sense for Woodbridge, but it does need to be addressed for Woodbridge, but I don't think this is a longer discussion as to what makes sense, which is why we need a planner to come in to make recommendations.
Agreed completely with
Yeah,
that.
so I think
so-
this exercise is difficult for us
Yeah.
to be doing this.
And so in this narrow question of the highlights in this section H, I know he highlights effective parking and actual parking. I don't see there's any real changes to be made here, except for with the big caveat of we should be rethinking our parking requirements
Right,
entirely, but not do that tonight.
That makes sense.
right, if we're
Yeah.
not,
I
yeah,
think try to tweak it now for
no, it doesn't,
accessibility.
Right.
I mean, because you've talked about, once you get past the town plan, hiring a planning consultant to help you look at the regs and update them.
Yep, so no changes, I think, to this parking or any of the highlights.
Okay. So the only change on page 127 is to remove the "and" that's in blue,
Correct.
and we'll leave 2 alone.
5 minutes left. We've now
Well-
gone to section 4.2, parking location and private roadway standards. This has more of the second and third lot layers and first lot layer language, which we have no sense of what any of that means, because there's no graphic. But it's not something we're gonna change right now. Down in D, there's a bicycle stall requirement, which he thinks is out of place in this parking location.
But that's a form of transportation, and I think that was a carryover from when Terry was here, and he was always a firm believer in having bicycle racks so that people could commute via bicycle and have a place to park.
It's common in multifamily, at least in more suburban, urban areas to have that requirement.
So like, yeah, like the bank,
Yeah.
when, what is it now? The one on the corner of Bank Street and Amity Road, when they updated and created more parking, they added a bicycle rack so that people could bike there.
So the one thing on skipping all the way to E specific to zone dev 2, number 4, it does say that minimum 1 bicycle stall provided for every 10 spaces, which is actually a repeat of
No,
the
but-
prior page.
Right.
Because dev 1 is in that,
Dev 2 is in there.
dev
yeah.
2 is in there as well. So we could delete that
Mhm.
highlighted thing in E4 as redundant.
Yeah.
Good. Table 4.3 is hanging in space with no cross-reference in the regulation. What is 4.3, Chris? Design speed table for private roadways.
Wait a minute. Are you on page 131? Oh, the
130.
table, yes, I have no clue why that's there.
Have a roadway, you should be allowed to go as fast as you want.
We
Yeah.
have a few of them, but, you know.
Is it about the travel lane width? Are we regulating the width of travel lanes? In private road, this is for private roadways.
Yeah,
Do we have any private roadways with the design speed above 35 miles an hour?
not that I know of.
Is the private roadway like in
There's one off of Round Hill that goes up to, there's a couple of houses off of Round Hill in Bethany. There's another one off of, Upper Newton, it goes up to Enoch and up that way.
will the streets in where Toll Brothers, are those private roads?
Those will be private roads, yep. And they were all designed for regular road use so that we could get fire trucks and
Yeah.
whatnot in there if we needed to. Which is typically more the concern that you
Yeah.
take care of an emergency if you need to.
So
So
this
I
table
can't
we
tell you
must
what the
search.
table does for you, but that's up to you guys.
Isn't not design speed more of a police issue?
I think this is saying
We
if
don't-
you're designing, my reading would, I guess, would be that if you want your private road to have a speed of 25 to 20,
Oh, you have to.
35 miles per hour, you have to make it at least
12
X feet wide, you know. That's how I read it. This seems to be just a guideline. I guess we're saying this is a rule, but as he points out, there's no actual regulation to effectuate this. Interpret
Can we
it,
take it out?
but then people will be speeding down really narrow roads.
Yeah, but the cops will catch them because it's a private road and they aren't patrolling private roads.
That's true,
Have to hire their own cops.
yeah.
I think this will be our last item of the evening, so all in favor of deleting table 4.3 as not
As hanging in
as
space with
hanging
no
in space with
cross-reference.
No cross-reference.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Aye, I'm in favor. Good, okay,
Done
so
good, guys.
we
Okay.
made it to page 130-ish.
So we'll finish this up right after we do the POCD, right?
No.
Thank you for doing that exercise. We've done all of our other business.
You've done all your other business, you just have to move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Good night, everyone. Good to see you.